On Sunday, it's the 6-3 Chiefs and the 4-5 Titans. And to help us break it down this week, we are joined by one of the best in the business in CBS's Tracy Wolfson, who will be on the call along with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on Sunday. Tracy, we appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, there's no shortage of storylines in this game on Sunday, and you don't have to go much further than the quarterback position for both teams to figure out what you want to talk about. And let's start with the Titans, just because it was 3 weeks ago they made the decision to go from Marcus Mariota to Ryan Tannehill. Tracy, the first question, just were you surprised when Mike Vrabel made that move to go to Ryan Tannehill?
You know, I wasn't really surprised. I mean, when you bring a guy like Ryan Tannehill onto the team as your backup, it seems like you're kind of, you know, let's see what happens, and you got a guy waiting in the wings. It's not just your typical backup. It's Ryan Tannehill. We know that, you know, he's a legit starter in the league, depending on who he's with and his injury situation. But obviously, before he was hurt, he was a starter for the Dolphins and legit, you know, he played well. And so I think, you know, you have a guy to fall back on, and Mariota has not really lived up to the hype that they've expected him to do. And you know, I think what's unique about Mariota is that he can utilize his legs, he can run, he's stronger, a big body, something that, you know, Tannehill is not, but he just wasn't getting it done. And we had them actually the first week of the season against the Browns, and they were really impressive. You know, we walked away from that game. We're like, wow, this is a team to be reckoned with. But it was really the defense that carried that team. And we've seen that Mariota just wasn't taking the right steps. And, you know, at that point, try something else. And you do have a guy like Tannehill waiting in the wings. So I was not really surprised that they made that decision.
Yeah, and you look at the AFC South now, that they made a decision before the injuries, but Jacoby Brissett dealing with the knee injury, it doesn't seem to be that serious, but he might miss a little time. J.J. Watt with the Texans, that at 4-5, the Titans feel like they still have a shot. And when they made that move, I think it was just 7 points that were scored in Mariota's last two starts before they went to Tannehill, who's now 2-1 as the starter. But you flip it over to the Chiefs, and it's a little bit different of a story in that Andy Reid stated on Wednesday that he's not going to let anybody know, probably up until game time coming from him, who the starter.
I'm hoping maybe he'll let us know on Saturday when we talk with him.
You guys get the production meeting, hopefully get something. I don't think he's going to tell anybody, and I don't think anybody blames him. If they have a decision, they're not going to say anything.
Yeah, there's no reason to.
Yeah, but just how impressed have you been over what Matt Moore has done stepping in for Patrick Mahomes over the last couple of weeks? Because he seemingly and literally was on a high school football field back at his alma mater at Hart High School in California, was staying in shape, but wasn't really thinking about playing, and he talked about it yesterday. But next thing you know, he's in prime time stepping in for Patrick Mahomes for one of the top teams in the AFC.
Yeah, extremely impressive, and give credit to Andy Reid as well to be able to get him up to speed and plug him in there the right way. And, you know, it's also, though, because of the guys he has around him. And if you're able to run the football and you're able to have those weapons like a Tyreek Hill that you could just toss the ball up to and he could do the rest, or a guy like Travis Kelce who, you know, is so impressive one-on-one and can really just go and grab that for you. You have so many guys around you to make you better as a quarterback and to help you out. And really all that Matt Moore needs to do is really manage the game in that way and not turn the ball over, not make the silly mistakes. And he's been able to do that. And so I think they've been, you know, lucky to have him in there in the time being. I do think personally we're going to see Patrick Mahomes this weekend. I have no other information than you guys do. But it was that 3-week timetable. And, you know, we saw him jumping on the sidelines last week. And, you know he wants to play, and they don't want to, you know, this is a tricky time right now. You know, I mean, the schedule doesn't ease up, and the Titans are still a defense you have to reckon with, and they want to come away with a victory. And I think, you know, we all know that Patrick Mahomes definitely gives them that best chance to win. So, you know, as long as they feel that it's not going to hurt him anymore, I would expect to see Mahomes out there.
Yeah, I think that celebration of him jumping up down is the most analyzed injury celebration in Chiefs franchise history. Fans were looking at that saying, hey, I feel pretty good. And the fact that he was a full participant on Wednesday kind of gives us a little glimpse of he is stepping in the right direction. We won't know if he'll play, but I know there's a lot of fans that would be excited if he's out there. And you mentioned the Titans defense, because whether it's Matt Moore or Patrick Mahomes, this is the Titans defense that in that division, they're the reason that they've been so consistent. They're 7th in the league in scoring, and they've got some guys who like to get their hands on the football, and Kevin Byard and Logan Ryan. Just as you've covered this team before, and like you said, you covered them earlier in the season, what's the most impressive thing about this Titans defense for Chiefs fans that might not know a lot about them right now?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at what they were able to do just, against that Cleveland team his first week in the season, they have good coverage skills. Logan Ryan, to me, is one of the best cornerbacks out there in the league. They are losing Malcolm Butler for the season now with that broken wrist. I do believe that that's going to be a big injury for them. But I think they're fast. They've got, speed. They're physical. And I've just been impressed with, they've really kept the Titans in the season. I mean, that's really the reason why they've been winning. And you mentioned it, they're right there in terms of that division. And so I think this is a bigger challenge. And I think it actually is not even the defense, to be honest. They have to start fast against a team like the Chiefs, and they haven't been able to start fast. It puts a lot more pressure on your defense, certainly. So if you can't put up points, especially against the Chiefs, and start out quickly, you're going to have a tough sledding ahead of you, because then you're going to rely on throwing the ball. And we know that, when I'm switching over to the offense, but just because that's how it's going to work. I mean, you always have a big challenge for a defense going against the Kansas City Chiefs. So they're actually going to need to get some help from their offense to help them in this one. And their strength is running the football. Yeah. And if you fall behind, they're going to have to abandon that like they did last week. And so I think for them, their defense is actually going to have to play complementary football. Their offense is going to have to help them out. Yeah,
I think that defense has taken on the personality of their head coach, and Mike Vrabel, who Chiefs fans know well, as he was part of that Matt Castle trade years ago that brought Matt Castle to Kansas City to be the starting quarterback. But let's flip to the defensive side of the football for the Chiefs, because that locally and regionally, that's made a lot of headlines here because of how they've played over the past 3 weeks, and that during that stretch, they're number 1 in the league in quarterback pressures, and they're number 8 in the league in opponent yards per carry, and that includes a great performance last week against Dalvin Cook. But as you mentioned, they've got a team that is focused on running the football with Derrick Henry, who there's not a lot of running backs in the league that you can replicate to go up against a guy who's 6'3", almost 250 pounds, but still, you look at some of those explosive numbers, still gets out and gets some of those chunk plays. When you look at this Chiefs defense, and I know you guys covered the game earlier against the Raiders, just how impressive have you been over the development of what we've seen over the past necessarily 3 weeks from this Chiefs defense, who have really carried things since Patrick Mahomes was injured?
Yeah, and I think the change at the defensive coordinator position certainly helps, and it seems as though they're starting to click. And it always takes time to get a team to kind of buy in and see the changes and learn the changes and really start working together in what Spagnuolo wants them to do. And I think they've been able to do that, and we're seeing that progression and taking the next step. And that's even without a few of the key players last week, and you're going to get some of them hopefully back. But I think you hit it on the head. I mean, the number 1 goal against the Titans is to stop the run and force Ryan Tannehill and force them to, throw the ball. And you're going to have a big challenge again, but they did a good job against Dalvin Cook. I mean, incredible, because that's how Minnesota wins their games. And so if they can have that same type of game plan, start with stopping the run, and I think they'll be successful. I've been really impressed with what we've seen, and we know, just even going back to last year, that without a defense from the Chiefs, it's a really tough. It's tough to take that next step, because, there's too many offenses they're going to face that they're going to need to slow down, especially when it comes later in the season. And we talk about, the rival, what could happen with the Patriots and some of the other teams that they may face. A team like you mentioned, Houston, with a good offense. So you look around the AFC and you see these offenses, and that they're going to have to try and slow down. So certainly impressed with what they've been able to do over the last few weeks. Carrying it over, getting some of those guys healthy will certainly be key.
And one of those guys that has been consistent, because there's been so many injuries for the Chiefs on both sides of the ball, like last week missing both starting defensive ends, going up against Dalvin Cook, which I think was maybe perhaps the most impressive part of that entire performance, is that they were out quite a few guys. But one player I do want to ask about in particular, because I know from your years of covering the SEC, you've covered Tyrann Mathieu for a little while, and you've been around him. He is as genuine and real as a player in the locker room, in front of the media, whatever it is. And a lot of the success just defensively, whether he's making the tackle or the interception, just as a whole, getting everybody on the same page. He's the perfect complement. Just what does it mean to you to see him from when you first met him to what he's doing right now in the NFL and for the Chiefs in particular?
Absolutely love the guy. I really do. I mean, he's got a special place in my heart because I did know him. I know what he went through at LSU. He actually took my son under his wing. It was his favorite player. He's got his jersey. You know, he signed it for him. Like, he's just one of those, you know, all around good guys. And, you know, if you talk to Les Miles, he's the first one to tell you that, you know, and he had that hiccup at LSU and they were all behind him because they knew what he brings to a team and the kind of person that he is. And anywhere he goes, bringing that energy to the team. And, you know, those are the things that, you know, you don't really, you know, an average fan might not think about. They're looking at the X's and O's and the numbers and all of that. But when you can have a player like him to kind of step in and play that leadership and bring the energy, it makes a huge difference to a football team. And I've seen that, and I see it now with this Chiefs team. And a guy who can rely on consistently day in and day out, not only about the performance on the field, but off the field either. And also, and in terms of that leadership and, like I said, the energy and what he brings, you know, it's intangible. And it really helps just take the team to another level, and it keeps them grounded, but it also, you know, gets them going when they need to get going, and someone you could rely on to make the talk and communicate out there. He brings it all anywhere he goes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that it is a big reason why this Chiefs defense has taken that next step.
Yeah, we saw that going all the way back to OTAs when the guys were in shorts, that the defensive energy, and it started with Spagnuolo and all the assistants that he brought in, but that energy just transformed itself into the players, and he was kind of that guy to then take the energy from Coach Spagnuolo and just kind of spread it out to the players, and just being who he is, as you mentioned. But the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I'm sorry that we don't know if Frank Clark is going to play, but I was trying to figure out a Michigan on Michigan connection, and if Frank Clark was healthy, he could be going up against Taylor Lewan, and I'd have the perfect Michigan question to ask you. But instead, normally we do a prediction. Normally I ask you for your prediction, but you're a professional, and I'm not going to put you in that spot because you're covering the game. So instead, I'm just going to ask you, what top storylines or things that you've studied throughout this week as you prepare for the game are you most looking forward to seeing how that comes to fruition on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest storyline is going to be Patrick Mahomes. And that's going to be the one that I'm going to be following throughout the game, because, you know, the fans are going to want to know not only, you know, at the beginning of the game, you know, how he's playing, are there limitations, what is he wearing, all the little details, how he was able to come back in just 3 weeks, right? I mean, does he have superhuman, you know, recovery skills? You know, is it that he's double jointed? All the things that you've been hearing. Hopefully, you know, we can get some more information on that. And then following him throughout the game. I mean, that's kind of my job, being on the sideline. You really try and seek out the little things that are happening and how he's reacting and how he's feeling, and is there, you know, any treatment throughout the game or anything that he needs. I think that's the number one storyline. I want to go back and I want to show the Damian Williams run from last week and what Cheetah was able to do, because I think that was incredible. You can never show that enough. I think we can talk about that as well, which would kind of be fun. You know, I haven't really dug into all the little details. A lot of stuff really happens once we talk to the teams in our meetings. And I love, the best thing for me is really finding the stuff that's happening down on the field that relates. And, you know, you talk about Mike Vrabel and certainly his connections, but that might be something that Jim takes care of in the booth. But, you know, are there people there? Are there, you know, whose family's coming? I like to kind of relate to what's happening, you know, in game and what you can build off of. And certainly through the next few days when we start talking to the teams and we do some more research, there'll be more storylines. But, you know, the number one storyline going in is definitely Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I know there should be a lot of Chiefs fans down there. There's a Chiefs Kingdom rally the night before down there on Broadway. If you find yourself down in downtown Nashville, we'll be down there at, I believe, the Tin Roof. With all the season ticket members are heading their way. It's not that far from Chiefs Kingdom and from Kansas City.
I heard it's going to be a big Chiefs crowd.
It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Well, Tracy, we appreciate you taking the time to join us, and we will see you along with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on CBS for anybody watching the game that's not making the trip to Nashville. But we appreciate your time.
Thanks, BJ. Appreciate it.